Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of 8-Bit Tom Game Lists. With me, video game expert Loren.
Missed you all. It's been forever. It's actually been about 32 seconds, but the magic of
Come on, Loren.
editing.
No one knows. No one out there knows. Thanks a lot. You just wrecked the moment.
The magic's gone. How have you been, Tom?
I've been good. How about you?
I've been great.
So today we are tackling on our favorite 5 controllers.
Pack in controllers. So that's the stipulation. It had to come with the system. It can't be aftermarket. None of that scuff crap. It's purely packed in with the box.
Yeah, no Game Sharks or knockoffs or
Mad Cats.
Mad Cats, thanks. That's what I was gonna think of. Mad Cats. Or whatever.
If you have a Mad Cats on your top 5,
There's something wrong with you.
like and
You're
subscribe
sick.
so you can learn how it really works.
How about I start us off?
Okay.
My honorable mention is the GameCube controller.
Me too.
No way, really?
Okay, what are your reasons?
Well, okay, so my reasons are when I picked this up, it was like a kiddie version of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it was like a kiddie version of the N64 controller. It was like a perfected kiddie version of the N64 controller. It felt better in your hand, but there was still the C stick and the A and B and the dual triggers, and instead of having a Z button, you had one bumper button, I believe, right?
Well, you had
2 bumper buttons
two
and one
bumpers
on,
and then the
one
Z,
on one side. Yeah,
right? And the bumpers
exactly.
were like
Yeah.
Squishy
So
analogs.
it's my honorable mention because GameCube came out late for me. I wasn't really into the GameCube. Like,
Okay.
I was doing PlayStation 2 and Xbox at that point. Yeah, it's my honorable mention because it felt good. It was kind of more of a perfected version of the N64, pseudo beta version. And what are your reasons?
The reason it's honorable mention for me is I have size 10 hands.
It's
Like,
tiny.
that's
It's a
a-
tiny controller.
And yet, it fits so perfectly. And so size 10 is XL. So I don't have dainty, tiny hands. And yet, that GameCube controller fits in there perfect. Like, it's comfortable for a long game session. The only reason it's honorable mention to me, the C stick instead of dual analog,
Yeah.
kind of dumb. And the Z button is it's just useless.
Yeah, it's
just
really
there.
useless. You kind of
But-
literally forget half the time it's even there when you play this game.
But the layout of the X and Y, it's
good.
A and oh man, like it just makes sense. Like I know like everybody made fun of it back in the day, like, oh, you just hit the green button to win, because it's the most used button on the controller. It should be the one that's front and center where your
Absolutely.
thumb sits. That was brilliant. Like the whole just copying the same like 4-button layout that we've had since Super Nintendo. I like that they tried to improve it. That's why it's honorable mention. That's why it's not higher up on the list. There you are.
That was honorable mention.
Or
So-
honorable mention. So I'll start with number 5.
No, I want to start with number 5.
Okay, you start. With
No, you start with number 5.
Okay, fine. This is where Tom starts hating me.
Oh, no.
So when we were talking about this like list, he was like, "So where do we cut it off?" And I was like, "Oh shit," because my number 5 is the PS5 DualSense.
Oh, no way.
Okay,
Why?
adaptive triggers.
Yes, but
Fucking game changing.
fucking 37 years has went by in video game history.
Have you held a PS5 controller yet? So when you're playing like Horizon and you pull the bow back and the right trigger actually gets tension on it, game changing. That to me is more important than Rumble ever was. It just changes like in Call of Duty, like when you're firing, it kicks back on the trigger. Like it actually feels like you're shooting a gun. Like it's
Okay, that's...
it's
but...
wild, man. The adaptive feedback in the controller is just crazy.
Yeah, but
And
then you're opening the floodgates for like people like, oh, the Xbox blah blah controller is better, blah blah blah.
possibly.
Toxic Xbox PS fans.
But to me, the PS5 is the best controller Sony's ever made. Your number.
Oh, sorry,
your
my number 5. My number 5.
It's early, folks. We're
It's
trying.
very early here in Edmonton. So, my number 5 is the 6-button Sega Genesis controller.
Wow.
Surprising,
Number
isn't it?
5.
It's surprising, isn't it? Yeah.
A little bit.
So this...
And we can
Yeah.
have that in the list because it was packed in later.
Yeah. And I never owned a Sega Genesis growing up.
Yeah.
So whenever I played the Sega Genesis, it was at a friend's place. And, of course, your friends on Sega Genesis...
So he had one, 6-button controller, and then you got
No,
the
he got
shitty
two.
3.
No, he got two. He got.
That's a friend, man. Did you marry him? Like,
No, it wasn't like that.
That guy better
got
be
two.
your best man.
He got 2 6-button controllers, and
He better be your best man at your wedding.
it was awesome because we would play the Street Fighter games on them and the Mortal Kombat games, and it felt proper. It felt like that's how you should play the game. Also, General Chaos on it felt great. I don't know if you remember General Chaos. What a great game. We're not going to go into games, but yeah, that's my number 5. It's the 6-button controller by Genesis. My number 4 is the Intellivision controller. Surprised?
Yeah, I am.
Look, listen to me on this.
Google
one,
it right now. Just pause and Google it right now, or put it on the screen.
Yeah, I'll put it on the screen.
It looks like a TV remote.
But-
Don't be fooled.
But listen up. Before this, we had the Atari 2600.
Piece of shit.
And it was garbage. It broke or it didn't work. It was a stupid joystick with a button on top and a button on the goddamn thing, and that's it. But anyway, the Intellivision controller was 16 buttons.
It was.
Okay? It was 16. It was like 9 numeric number pads, and is it not? Yeah, 9
a couple buttons on the sides,
and then
right?
2 per side.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's actually the first directional thumb pad ever made. This was the first one where it was like perfect, like analog, before analog came out for anything else. This is the first console.
Yeah, before Atari 5200. It was.
So this was
That was
revolutionary.
another shitty controller.
Because when we went from Atari to this was like way better. Because the controls felt like
You're not wrong whatsoever. Like, its timeline, like its point in time.
And there's a lot of people hating on me right now.
Very important control. I'm not hating that at all. That's absolutely.
Hey, Loren, fuck you. What's your number 4?
Hey, Tom, suck it. My number 4 is TurboGrafx or PC Engine, depending on which
course.
one you're going to.
That's
Now,
like the classic Nintendo controller.
it's a classic Nintendo controller, but whereas the brick would cause your pinky finger to fucking go
Cramp.
numb because it
Cramp
was a
up.
square corner.
Yeah.
They actually rounded the corners, so like front to back. So if you're holding it, nobody out there listening to me can see this, but for Tom's sake,
He's like doing a
if
Batman
you're holding
logo.
it this way, it rounded that way. Instantly more comfortable, but turbo, man. Turbo built into a controller was like, the hero that we didn't think we needed at the time. Wow. And I mean, what was the number 1 on PC Engine or TurboGrafx? It was shoot 'em up games.
Yeah, horizontal and vertical shooters.
So Turbo, it's not really buying you an advantage. It's just holding the button down for you instead of you having to sit there and mash shoot, right? It made so much sense to have Turbo built in for a console that had nothing but like shoot 'em ups. So, and wildly comfortable.
Yeah.
Just wildly comfortable. Ridiculously short cord, like they
Yeah,
thought we
was
were
it
all
less
going to be
than,
in
like,
little
5
Japanese
feet?
pagodas, apparently, but
It was like 3 feet cord or
yeah,
something.
it was super short.
It's terrible.
Like not as bad as the Famicom back, but
Oh, in Famicom, you practically had to have your face in front of the TV.
yeah, and the wires are hardwired.
Yeah.
So
What were they thinking?
there's no plug in there.
What were they thinking?
I don't know.
What's your number 3?
My number 3. I mean, if Tom wasn't shitting on me before,
What?
he's gonna shit on me now. It's,
my God.
it's sitting right in front of me.
For fuck's sake.
I mean, kind of.
come on, man.
I will go on record and say the best analog controller ever released as a pack-in is the Xbox 360. Everything about it. The home button,
Yeah.
at the time, right? The best layout, the asymmetrical thumb, the 4-button layout,
Start,
with-
select,
with
and
dual
home button.
with dual triggers.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be surprised by my number 3 because I'm cheating as well.
How many this time?
Just one.
Okay.
Do you want to guess what it is?
So it's only one controller. It's not going to be
One
like
controller
split between two.
One controller. Just one controller.
And it was a pack-in.
It was a pack-in.
And it's, I think 3 is too high or too low on the list to go with that one. So I'm gonna go with like ColecoVision or something like that.
Xbox Big Bertha.
Oh, the Duke!
Yep. The big lady.
I back you on that,
The
sir.
big lady was the
I
most
back you on that.
comfortable controller.
Fucking rights it was.
ever played.
It was the size of a CFL football, but holy shit! Like, you know what? You never got cramps.
Dude, it was a. You know what? That's one of the controllers where it's like you lay it on your lap.
Because you couldn't lift it. It was fucking
But when-
2.5 pounds.
And then like you put it on.
Okay, no,
and
the
then,
Duke.
and then you put the controller on the table to get up to grab a beer, and your hands would feel like kind of numb because you've been laying on your lap for so long.
Yeah, because it was like pinched in between the controller and the circulation was cut off. Yeah,
But it's such,
dude, I will back you on
such a
that.
good controller. Like, there's so many memories of this controller, man. Like all the Ghost Recon games, the
You know what's weird,
the
though?
Desert
Like-
Storm games. It just all the controls felt right.
Yeah.
The start and select. Sorry, the white and black button.
I was just gonna say the white and black. Well, why did they move them?
I don't know why they did.
'Cause
Well, they made a smaller controller eventually.
Yeah, with the S.
Yeah.
Like very
And then it
quickly.
was just start select, and it was not
And-
anyway.
But the white and blue or white
Yeah.
and black buttons, they
Yeah.
moved them from. They used to be above.
Yeah.
And then they or what? Do I have that backwards now? Used to be above the
They're
four
below now.
buttons,
They're
and now they're below.
Yeah.
Why did they move them?
Maybe they're too far away.
Yeah.
But this thing had like 2 memory card slots. Does that sound right?
Yep.
And
I have a Duke.
Yeah.
I have a
It's
Duke.
been a
at home.
long time. I'd love to play an
I
original
found it at a
Xbox
grad
game.
sale. It was like 80-year-old sweet young like little tiny lady, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What is that doing at your grad sale?" And I was like, "I'll give you $5 for it." And she's like, "Yeah, sure."
I want another original Xbox.
Duke.
Yeah, the Duke.
What's your number 2, Tom?
So my number 2, Lauren, is the N64 controller.
I don't know.
You're mad.
I don't know. No, I'm confused. I don't know how to feel.
I know a lot of people.
I don't know how to
wouldn't
feel
wanna
right now. I'm processing that.
take- Disappointed a bit.
No,
surprised,
I'm-
shocked.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's just.
I'll be over here. You can talk about that
when it
controller,
came
and I'll just
out,
kind of
like,
process that.
depending on some games for the N64, because they knew what kind of controller they did. For a lot of these games, you could actually pick different styles of controls that would best work for you. So
I'll
if,
say the Z button worked way better than I thought it was going to, and I think it was the precursor for like, you know, these pro controllers that they have nowadays, where they have like the 4 like back buttons
yeah,
or like
those are
paddles.
insane though. Come on.
I mean, they work, but that Z trigger kind of was the precursor to all of it. So
Yeah.
I guess they can thank Nintendo yet again.
Yeah, it was just when it came out, depending on the game, it just felt right. Like some games, you barely just to use as an example again for WCW World Tour.
Yeah.
The only reason you'd ever have to use a joystick is to taunt with your wrestler, or you would rotate the joystick like a Mario Kart style game
Yeah.
to get out of a pin or submission. That is it. You'd never have to use it. So normally you just tap it or quickly rotate it.
Yeah.
And when you rotate it when you're submission or pin, it's because you're not doing anything else. You have to rotate it. So I think depending on the game, it would be one of the best controllers you've ever look. Playing F-Zero X on N64 with that controller, tell me what other controller would ever feel just as good to play
Right.
that game. It doesn't exist.
No, you're right. And like thinking back to the time, I mean, like again, how brilliant was Rare that you could like have a controller option for just holding 2 of them. Okay.
So what is
yeah.
your number 2?
My number 2 might hurt a little bit because everybody out there is going, how is this not number 1 in your mind? Super Nintendo.
I love Super Nintendo controllers.
So it's ergonomically, it's near perfect.
Yeah.
It
is.
like,
It's the most perfect
I think it's-
controller ever made.
I think it's the most versatile ergonomic, you know, old school digital pad. Because you can hold it this way, you could hold it that, like you can hold it in like 4 or 5 different ways.
Small hands, medium hands, big hands, everyone can play this.
Yeah. It was
It's one of the greatest controllers ever made, period.
the 2 reasons it doesn't go number 1 for me is hi Robin. Yes, I have a cat in my lap now.
Fucking Tabby Cat back again.
Yeah. He's fine. He wants to be part of this. The only 2 reasons that I can't, 1, the D-pad is not as good as everybody thinks it is. It does not read diagonal directions. It just doesn't. It reads
does.
right and down.
No.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Hold on, but it
So
like in Smash TV, can't you go like diagonally?
Yeah, but it's reading. It's not reading diagonally. It's reading left and down at the same time. So don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite controllers. It's just not my favorite.
I kind of feel a little hurt by how you describe the Super Nintendo controller.
It's number 2. And also, what was one of the most popular games at the time? Like for me, Street Fighter 2. And that controller, borderline ass for Street Fighter 2. Sorry.
Okay, so what's your number one, Loren?
Well, my number one was the only way to play Street Fighter better, and that was on a Sega Saturn.
Ah, the console that could and would, but never achieved.
But didn't.
Yeah, but never achieved.
So, and there's 2 different versions. So you can be picky here. The American one,
there's an anniversary.
yes, which was just the Japanese one brought here. But the American one is a little bit bigger, clunkier. The D-pad is insanely huge.
It is big.
And it's beefy.
It's a beefy controller. Yeah.
And it's
the bigger of the Sega controllers.
I would say it's the best D-pad.
I can agree with that.
It's the best D-pad in gaming. The 6-button, well, actually 8-button.
Because the top 3 buttons would be a tiny bit smaller than the bottom 3 for this one.
Yes, so they were like a little bit more oval, the top 3, and then the bottom 3 were like rounder.
Yeah.
But there's also 2 triggers,
yes.
right, or 2 bumpers, right? So 8-button layout.
Great controller, and then also like it felt really good for just a shameless plug. Fire Pro Wrestling 6-Man Scramble on the Sega Saturn with that controller was phenomenal because you could do all your medium, high, low strength kicks and grapples. It was easy to run around to get up and down the turnbuckle, and it was just because, you know what, like sometimes really good games get made, but sadly they have really shitty controllers with them.
Yep.
And that's not the game's fault, but when you have both a good controller and a good game, it makes for a way better experience.
Oh yeah, it's like that initial Street Fighter experience on Genesis where you had to hit select to change the 3 buttons.
The 3-button layout was garbage.
Yeah, it was.
Thank God they upgraded to the 6-button because it made it like a superior.
Yes.
So at first when it came out for the Genesis Super Nintendo was like, this is the greatest game you can play. You don't want to play it on Genesis. But then Genesis released a controller. It's like, you want to play this on Genesis. We were wrong
now
before.
you can play it like in the arcade, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, what that Saturn controller was that perfected.
Absolutely.
So that's my number one. It's definitely a personal. I know everyone's going to disagree with that. And I'm okay with that because... Don't worry, Tom's got your guys' back right now with his number one.
You know exactly what it is.
I know exactly what it is. And it deserves... One of us has to call it number one.
It's a Super Nintendo controller. It's 4 buttons, 2 triggers. I actually liked the D-pad because it was less edgier on the corners or more rounded out. I guess it really depends how your hands work.
I loved that it was like matte.
Yeah.
And that your finger wouldn't slide off it. Like,
absolutely.
Ever. It was sticky almost.
And then the 4 buttons, it's like, I don't know if they did this for like blind people, but like 2 of the buttons were concave and the other 2 were convex, so it was like, it kind of felt interesting, right?
Well, especially like we read magazines, right? Like EGM and stuff back in the day, and you saw the pictures of the Japanese one.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude,
so
we got ripped off, man.
I always bought the Japanese variant.
I eBayed the shit out of that, man. I think
or
I
the
have
European,
like
because the European and the Japanese both have the red, blue, green, and yellow buttons, right?
The PAL is the unicorn, because it's the Japanese, the Famicom controller, but with a 10-foot cord.
Yeah.
Instead of the 4-foot cord that comes with the Japanese ones.
And it's just like, so many good games came out for Super Nintendo, and because the Super Nintendo controller was so easy to use and
it fit every playstyle.
Yeah, like there was never an issue doing anything, and when you don't have an issue with the controller, you normally have good gameplay, and if you have good gameplay, you're gonna have a good time with what you spend your hard money on getting this console that is in front of you on your TV screen, hopefully playing a good game that you're enjoying. And sometimes, you know what? We've had really shitty consoles. We had Atari 2600s, which was good games with garbage controllers, which sucked. You know, we've had the
Panasonic 3DOs.
Oh, 3DO. Oh, we shouldn't even touch base on that. Like the Atari Jaguars. The controller was garbage. The 3DO. My God. Even Magnavox was terrible. Like, I remember playing that at a buddy's place. It was terrible.
And you talked earlier the Ataris. All 3, it's like the 26,
garbage
the 52, and the 78. All 3 of them were ass.
Absolutely.
Who makes an analog controller that doesn't self-center?
Like, it doesn't make sense.
Terrible.
But that was our controllers list.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining with us. I know that you will not agree with a bunch of shit I said today, and that's all right.
And I'm thankful that Tom has not thrown me out of his house for mentioning 3 analog controllers in one list.
I can't believe you shit on Super Nintendo controller that bad.
I know, that too. Thank you for having me in your house.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Next time.
Bye.